So we thought, well, let's get together and talk about what's happening in Missoula. Let's figure out what our needs are, what our resources are, and what gaps of services there might be. So that is our objective this afternoon, is to indeed get a feel for what it's like to be a family caregiver in Missoula, Montana, and what our resources are, and maybe some things that we need to be continuing to nurture as a community for one another. And of course, we get to be inspired. Thanks to MCAT for coming to record. So this will, those people who weren't able to be here can maybe see it on MCAT. And so let's begin.
It's 2:30 in the morning. No, I can't call her now. It's 2:30 in the morning. She's probably asleep. Hopefully she's asleep. I know. I'll call the hospital and see if she checked herself in. No. This is ridiculous. I need to get some sleep. I'll call her tomorrow on my lunch break. You know, I never have liked that neighborhood she's lived in. All those transients coming in and out, in and out. Knowing my mother, she probably invited one up for dinner and cooked them supper. What am I talking about? She doesn't even cook dinner for herself. Why would she cook dinner for a complete stranger? Besides, I put that security system in. She'll be all right. And if I call her, I know what she'll say. Cameron, you're such a worrywart. Relax, I can take care of myself. I'm the one that should be worrying about you. My doctor gave me some pills. The pills help me sleep. She takes too many pills. What if she forgot to take her pills? I'll call her and make sure. I mean, she only has Tina and I to take care of her. Mom, are you awake? Of course you are now. It's Cameron. Well, I just called to see if you're all right. Is everything going okay? Yeah, I know what time it is, Mom. I'm sorry. I just worry about you, that's all. I know I'm a worrywart, Mom. I'm sorry. I just feel helpless. Do you need anything? Anything at all? You know, I can be there in a half an hour. I know you're not a child, Mom. Like I said, I just worry about you. Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll call you tomorrow if it's okay and check on you then. Okay. I love you too, Mom. Good night.
An indicator of the caregiver's long-distance response, isn't it? I didn't introduce myself. I think I know most of you, but I'm Barbara Spring, and I'm with the Lice Institute Missoula Demonstration Project. And we'll be talking about Caring Circles and Choices Banks when we get to the needs time of our agenda. But most importantly, now we want to talk with our panel of experts here. These are professionals and in family caregiver profession that bring to us their sense of what the demands and needs and challenges of caregiving is like from their perspective. And we'll just go right down the list as defined in your program. So Tom Roberts is our first one to the geriatric position.
My mom's physician. He did a great job, by the way. So, so thanks, Tom. Tell us about what your experience is.
Barb, do you mind me, since we're sort of small here,
Not using a microphone?
I don't know, can you guys hear me without a microphone?
Go for it.
How does that affect you?
Betty, can? If I talk louder?
Yeah. You be his indicator, Ben.
I can talk. Although I can't get this up, so I'm going to sit up here.
There we go.
There we go.
Is that just a video microphone?
Okay.
No,
It's not related to Barbara's speech.
Oh, there we go. So I'll pass this around.
Oh, okay, I see.
all right.
So this goes past one, but you can be close to it.
Well, I'm reminded of a time when I invited a doctor who knew a whole lot about something to come to a place where all the people that were listening to him knew at least as much as he did about what was going on. And he used the Coles to Newcastle analogy. I'm looking at people who I know have been involved in caregiving in depths that I just sort of watch and sort of listen and in awe of the kind of responsibilities and care that people can provide. I do the best that I can, but I often feel like I'm just sort of being carried along on the waves or the water of the situations that I find myself in, and just get to glimpse what people are going through. Obviously, that's one of the reasons I like being a geriatric physician, is I do get to see what people do and how they manage it. And I didn't really come here with a lot of prepared remarks, in fact, none, and I wasn't even sure what Barbara wanted out of me when she asked me to do this. I see about 70% of my practice is geriatrics. And so a lot of what I see are people who are disabled, and most of the time the folks that are not doing well, which is the majority of them, come in with a partner. And that partner is either a spouse, which is the best, or a daughter or a daughter-in-law, and very occasionally a son or a son-in-law, or a grandchild, or a neighbor. And the variety of caregivers that provide care is absolutely amazing to those of us who are working in it on an ongoing basis. I've got a number of older folks who are at home now only because their neighbors, totally unrelated, people they've known that have just moved in and maybe lived next to them for a few years, really pitched in and taken on management tasks that family is unable to provide or family is not available for. And it goes all the way up to spouses. And we'll hear more about that. Nancy's going to tell us tales about her parents and how that works. Often it's the women who are taking care of the men. We men don't live as long, and we're not real good caregivers, I think. But that is too much of a generalization, because, as you know, there's caring men and capable men who step in, especially spouses. I don't want to ignore the other part of it, though. I think we're here talking about caregiving and the strains on caregivers. We do have in this city a lot of other care that's being given, and the nursing homes and the assisted living and the retirement homes, and very, very commonly, in my practice at least, I'll see people that are in that kind of a situation. And the caregivers in those places are hard at work and are doing fantastic jobs, often, again, for very little pay. So We have a very wide variety of care that is provided. Home health nurses, I see some of those folks here. Parish nurses providing care, all kinds. And it occurs to me that it's almost part of the human condition to be caring for people. We, look to our lives as being productive and working, and I think about my other activities, but certainly part of us being here is being caretakers.
Great, thanks, Tom. When you have to give a spouse a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, do you have any thoughts of the impact on the caregiver in that, scenario?
I'll tell you my worst story.
Might as well take it on the back.
Here's the very worst. So I'm sitting in my office, and a brand new couple come in who have been followed by a psychiatrist for the last year, and they're accompanied actually by a parish nurse. And I don't know anything about them, although there's been a tremendous history that's gone on, obviously, leading up to this situation where they're coming to see the expert, right? And so they come in and they sit down, and the husband immediately hands me a letter which says that they've seen a neuropsychologist, and the woman doesn't have Alzheimer's disease. And that was a year before. And so I go about interviewing this family. They've been seeing a psychiatrist to treat depression. And it's immediately obvious to me that the woman has Alzheimer's disease. So I'm a firm believer in telling it like it is. And I said, well, obviously your wife has Alzheimer's disease. And it was like I had slapped him across the face. And I felt horrible, and the man felt horrible, and the wife said, oh no, it can't be Alzheimer's disease. So that's the worst. As it turned out, we made up, and she's a little better on medication, and I sort of confirmed what everybody knew, and that I think is working out all right.
The elephant out of the closet.
Well, yeah, the elephant wasn't in the closet. It was sitting right here. Yeah. But I would say that Alzheimer's disease, by the time they come to see me, they know that there's something wrong. And so for the most part, I'm just saying, yes, you're right, something's wrong. And, Alzheimer's disease is a horrible, horrible problem. It's just terrible.
So long-lasting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, there was an interesting study that I don't say I just read, I mean last year or two. The average lifespan from the time of diagnosis to death, average, we all know different than this, is 2.5 years. So in some cases it can go on for many years, but many times by the time the diagnosis is made, people are fairly well advanced, and although we know that they don't exactly die from Alzheimer's itself, in fact it is the Alzheimer's that kills them because they become debilitated and get a pneumonia or fall and fracture something, or at some point if they get bad enough we decide not to give antibiotics and let them go. So that means that a lot of people live less than 2.5 years, and some live more. So it can be, it's sort of a death sentence. I mean, and it's a sentence for major disability and changes.
And runs, what, 10% of our geriatric population?
No, I'm not very good with percentages. I think by the time you get to 85, a quarter of the people will have Alzheimer's disease. Yeah, the older you get.
Brenda Carpenter, and I'll have Brenda next, reminds me, Brenda is giving away a day at the spa for the caregiver of the year, and we need some more. So if you know of any neighbors, like Tom mentioned, or any people that you think are just doing their job as a caregiver in whatever way that you want to honor them with a day at the spa, fill out a piece. And then we have some door prizes too that are related to this. Also wanted to make sure you understood our very broad definition of caregiving as relates to the notion of a neighbor. And caring for someone can happen at all stages of life, of course. Certainly happens with the infant, but it also happens with the chronically ill, with the temporarily ill, so that going through some kind of challenge. But we want to make sure that we as a community know and understand the role and help one another be valid and cared for caregivers, so that we can support one another clear through the end of life. And it's sometimes those last stages that get a little heavy. Brenda is a caregiver, and so tell us about it, Brenda.
Well, I want to say thank you first for inviting me to be here, and if you have a week, I could probably tell you about it. First and foremost, like Barbara said, please sign up a caregiver, or yourself if you are a caregiver. We will be giving away today at the end of our panel discussion. I will draw a name, and that person will get a full day at the spa. They will get a wonderful, luxurious soak in our jacuzzi, a massage, a manicure, a pedicure, a haircut and style to really re-energize that person and honor that person. When I stepped into the theater here, I spoke up to Bonnie Lee, who's also with the Aging Services, and I said, it feels like a circle, just like you folks are. I feel, how the tables are set up, the support groups, and that's what it's about. It's about being a circle, supporting each other. Some are stronger in that circle, some are weaker, and it changes. But to have that arm around you literally and physically is wonderful, but also mentally, spiritually, emotionally. With that said, I am a caregiver. I took care of my father, took care of my mother, who is now, Mom is 83. She's in my living room in a hospital bed as we speak. She's 87 years old. She weighs 83 pounds. I get the two confused. Sharp as a tack. And not so much with the medical, the heart, kidneys sort of thing, but the body's given out. And so there's been those toxic moments. I've had counseling so that I can deal with my own emotions and Mom's. I don't have the luxury of being able to be home with her 24 hours. I do hire a private caregiver that comes in when I'm not there to make sure she gets her meds and her meals, and she can still feed herself, but she's very frail. I thought that she would die, months ago. And of course, there's a lot of people here who know my mom. In that area of my dining room, I have hung a very large, it's poster size, but it is me and my mother, a black and white picture, and it's me nursing my mother when I was probably, maybe 1 month old, and it's very tender. That is what the honor of caregiving about is to me. On the other side, my mother was a World War II nurse, and so I have her insignias, her pins. She was stationed in England, but an honoring of who she was and then who she is now. It is tough. She'll call my name out at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. I get up at 5 in the morning to go to work. I come home. Phone calls, and of course now she can't use the phone, but that really hit home, that whole conversation. I had, and I'll just share a few stories with you if you don't mind, from a caregiver perspective. I'm a nurse too, so I have a clinical there. But I've got Mom the necklace, the little ADT security, you push this if you fall. And of course you fight about it for the first 6 months because they don't need it. And then she found out that when she pushed that button, no matter what time of day it was, that there was young, strong, good-looking men that would come and help her. I tried to explain to her that there's a call system and they call me first. Didn't faze her. Oh, honey, if you want some birthday cake on the way out, take a piece. It's so nice of you to come and help me up. Or, oh, I thought I was going to fall, but I didn't. So that was one of our little stories. Another one, and this is a little more intimate, but you see the humor in it. Mom had a mastectomy, 8 years ago. And I was taking away her little towel that she eats, for food and things in the bed. And she started laughing, and she said, the funniest thing just happened. She goes, I was eating grapes, and I thought I dropped one, kind of down my nightie. And she said, I tried to pick it up, and I realized it hurt. And I says, what do you mean? She goes, I was pinching my nipple. She thought it was a grape. So, there's those moments that make it all worthwhile. There's also moments of, I have two sisters who live out of state, and they're both nurses. One works in a geriatric unit, the other one teaches CNAs. But there hasn't been that support from family. And to realize that and not to become angry or frustrated, but to look at another path or another support system. That's what it's all about. It's about taking care of each other. That's why I brought material here today, and if you don't have an opportunity when you came in to get it, make sure that when you go out, there's little bookmarks that say the 4 steps, caregiver self-advocacy tips. And then it talks about how to take care of yourself if you're a caregiver. So that is really important. Got to care for yourself in order to care for that person. And when Mama passes, I'm thinking it might be this year, we don't know. I want to set up a support group for caregivers specifically. So that is one of my own personal goals. I am happy to answer any questions of situations maybe that you folks have, because you're the experts. I'm just one of the caregivers. So I want to say thank you again, Barbara, for having me.
Are there any particular questions? Should we do another round?
Someone sent us a package? You don't have a girlfriend coming over, do you?
Mary, Meg, you look fantastic. Can I come in?
Oh, what are you doing here? Don't you have lawyer stuff to be doing in Chicago? It's Wednesday.
Oh, my client's settled, so I didn't have to go to court. So I thought, what a great opportunity to come see Daddy, and you too. Where should I put these?
Oh, they're beautiful. They smell nice.
Daddy, it's way too warm in here to have this old blanket covering you up. Aren't you warm?
I thought he might get a chill sitting by the window. His hands get so cold sometimes.
And what's with this TV? What in the world are you watching? I'm sure we'd mind something better.
Meg, he likes Bob Vila. He watches Bob Vila every day.
I think Daddy's hungry. Maybe I should go pick something up. Chinese sounds good.
Meg, he can't eat Chinese. The doctor gave me a list of foods that should be good for his heart. I thought I'd make some grilled chicken tonight, or maybe spaghetti. I assume you're staying for dinner?
What are you running, a concentration camp? Can't he decide what he wants to eat for himself?
No, Meg, he can't.
Well, it wouldn't hurt to deviate. I mean, this is a special occasion. I'm here.
Oh, yes, I guess that is a special occasion since we see you, what, 3 times a year? You breeze in here like we should be throwing a party every time you show up out of the blue, and you act like nothing is wrong. And you know what? For you, it's not, because you can leave whenever you want. I, on the other hand, am stuck here.
I spend money. I paid for this wheelchair. I'm doing everything I can from Chicago, but I am not about to give up my dreams to move back here and have no life outside of this house.
No, you left that for me. When Daddy had his stroke, I wasn't even given a choice. It was, without question, me who was going to move in here and take care of him.
Please, like you had other plans.
Well, maybe I did, but not now. I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning, and I won't go to bed until after midnight, because when he's awake, I'm awake. All you have to do is take money from people, give it to other people, go back to your high-rise, have a glass of wine, and go to bed. Try and have a little compassion, Meg.
Compassion. Compassion, I offered to move both of you to Chicago, and you both refused.
No, I refuse. I refuse because I want Daddy to be happy where he is, not in someplace unfamiliar to him.
Oh, well, aren't you just as sick?
Meg, can we start over, please? Daddy, Meg wants us to take us out to dinner. Does that sound good to you? You have to have a salad with dinner, though. Those are the rules.
Daddy, I've been thinking about moving back here. Chicago's not really doing it for me. What do you think? How about I just stay for a couple of weeks? Take you guys out on the town. How would that be?
Yeah, it sort of spoke your condition there, I think. We have a lot of door prizes, fun door prizes. We don't have as many cards. Did you all fill out one of these cards? Because there's some neat door prizes out there. Bonnie, there's some of them that didn't fill this out. So Joy, how about you? This have this wonderful bag here from Hospice of Missoula. I saw one of these come in, it had stuff in it already, and I thought, oh, I hope we have one of those for our door prize. So this is yours, Joy. Okay, who's next on our list here? Nancy Heyer, the Director of Partners.
Most of you would think that I would be here to talk about major resources. I've been a home care nurse, home care provider for 28 years. This segment, though, is not about resources, and my life right now is living. I live the life, personally, of the clients and the families of the 700 or so that we serve through Partners. In 1999, our youngest child was just released from medical care from having been diagnosed as with cancer, and he had his 5-year mark. So life was good. He was in college. Our oldest daughter married a wonderful, wonderful kid and got married in August. At the end of July, my mother fell, broke her hip, had to have a hip replacement, and that began a time when our lives changed. We thought that we were going to be playing golf and going fishing and enjoying the empty nest. In December of that year, just 2 months later, my husband's father, these are Scandinavian people, so they under-report what's going on. And that is certainly, as a Pennsylvania Dutch-Irish person who married into a purely Scandinavian family, I listen to all the understatements, and you know what I'm talking about. Papa was having trouble walking. He's complaining about his knee. And actually, one of the last times that we had seen him, he had a dance with our daughter at her wedding, and she was his only granddaughter, so it was a very touching moment. But even in the videotape, his knee was bothering
was having a stroke and had a devastating stroke, leaving him completely paralyzed on the left side. Spent some time in a nursing home, and his mother was, Doug's mother was going to be 80 years old. That began a time when our lives completely changed, and our week as a couple looks a lot like the week that our caregivers have from partners. On any time during the day, the phone does ring. There's kind of a standing joke at my office that when my mother reads her mail arrives at 3:30 in the afternoon, and at 3:40, my phone rings, and are you busy? And no, yes, whatever. And we go over the Montana power bill, or the power bill. And then 5 minutes later, the phone rings again. She opened another piece of mail and had something to say about it. So we take them one at a time. After work, or generally after supper, if Doug and I get to see each other, Doug now is a guidance counselor at C.S. Porter, so he doesn't work far from where his parents live, and he stops off at his mother's house, and he does exercises with his dad. They believe that his dad is going to walk again. Hello. He does not walk. He is not going to walk, but it keeps them going. We eat supper, and then here's another fact about Mom. Mom would be eligible for a lot of services, but her day begins at 4 or 5 in the afternoon. She has a circle of friends on the telephone that she talks to in the middle of the night. This is something, if you're a caregiver, you know that older people live at night for a variety of reasons. They're afraid. The TV programs are the good reruns that they like. They can eat whenever they want to. There's a sense of freedom about that, but it is totally in opposite of our lives. Totally. So if I'm going to get across patient education, do the pills and the bills, which I do, I had to go through a period of saying I'm not going to be responsible for this until such a time that I realized that her medications were so mixed up and it was a cause of her problems. And so I took over the filling of the pill boxes. So when I go to do the pills, I also have to do the bills, and I have to find the bills somewhere located in the house. And now I have her discipline that's in one place. While I'm doing the bills, then I have the garbage to take out, food. Sometimes my husband gets groceries for her. Generally, he gets groceries on the same day that he goes over and does heavy work for his folks to maintain the house. And this is pretty much our evenings. We try to, Mom will call in the evening and say, is it West Wing or is Judging Amy on? Because those are two programs that my husband and I like. And she does the best she can. And the other night she called at about 11:45, and of course we were in bed and asleep. Oh, I'm so sorry. I woke you up. I have good news. I said, what is that? And she said, well, I just read an article that if I haven't got Alzheimer's by the time I'm 80, I'm not going to get it. So it's something I'm not going to have. Then the telephone rings again from my siblings, my brother and my sister, and I think these kids have met my siblings. They both live in Washington State. My brother is the baby boy, and he is a lovely man. I love him. I love my brother and sister. They're not capable. They are worried. I appreciate the fact that whatever they know about our mother is through me. And they live in fear, so I do appreciate that, but I also don't appreciate the phone calls from my brother that asks to speak to my husband, and tells him what he ought to do about that porch light that just keeps burning out. And so, you know, I'm not whining. This is just part of my life. It has made me a better administrator in the last few years. It's made me understand the kinds of flexibility and the kinds of things that organized organizations must do. They must meet our clients where they're at. I get a lot of nurturing at Partners. Sometimes I think people don't want to see me coming. Another typical thing is that Doug's parents receive long-term care. They receive private services. And what is not an uncommon thing is that we'll be sitting at the dinner table and a caregiver was late 3 weeks ago to see Uncle Johnny, and that is the dinner topic about why caregivers are late. Well, that's what happens when you put people in a car in the wintertime and they get flat tires and they're humans or their children get sick. But Johnny is stuck in his bed. And so they call Uncle Otto, who is 85 years old, and he goes and takes care of Johnny. So now that's a black mark against organized services, even though it's Nancy's. These are things, we had our staff appreciation banquet last night, just in closing as a thought, and we had a speaker that talked about caring for the caregiver. And one of the things, for those of you that are in parish nursing or coming from the faith community, my 1 hour or 2 hours a week that I give myself to be alone is during the church hour, and I do not go to church because I cannot, I have faith, but I do not go there because it is like there is more need there. And my husband and I cannot do anymore. So it's really important to, you know, my brother and sister are so wonderful. They tell me I do a great job. So when Doug had open heart surgery in April, I then could have cared less about those parents because my partner, my pal, couldn't get groceries for Mom, and I moved her in my house for a short period of time. The grandchildren, my children, then became caregiving of me a little bit, and my best friend, and I had wonderful support, but I thought I was going to lose it. It was, it happens, and very quickly.
An anchor goes away.
Can I just say one thing really quick? Is Nancy and I have talked quite in depth, and the two household things. Mama had her house and wanted to die there because that's where Daddy was. I live in Lolo, so I was maintaining two households, roommates, living out of a suitcase, different cat food for different cats. You could lose it in an afternoon, so.
Right. On that note, Marilyn, we have a book for you. So, Kathy is that other professional, the social worker who helps us put things together.
I've been a social worker for probably 22 years, but the last 18 years with Community Medical Center, where I coordinate services for clients and their families, and then I end up supervising caregivers, both for family caregivers and for the paid caregiver situation. And about 13 years ago, it just became really clear to me that I needed to care more for my caregivers. Probably if I didn't care for the caregivers first, I couldn't care for my clients, or I couldn't have other people care for them. And yesterday, or 2 days ago, I was going down the Bitterroot, and I thought, I'm going to ask every one of these caregivers what they think about this panel that we're going to have today. And what are the needs and challenges of caregivers, so that I would get it right from the horse's mouth in real current form. And the first case that client I stopped off at, I asked the mother, I said, what's it like to be a family caregiver? And she says, it's 24/7 every day. And and her daughter was sitting there who receives the service, and she said, "We're always together." And then she said, "But the next thing is, we're now putting on a conference for people that have lung problems." And she said, "Without Mom's voice for me, I couldn't have gained my voice." So while they had a challenge, they also had a really neat situation that they could share together. And I walked out of there thinking, you know, do I have enough hours that this mother gets paid for all of that she does? And she turned to me and she said, "You know, I really do," because she said, "Some I want to just donate. I don't want to get paid for everything." And I said, "What would you need the most? What could our community do for you?" And she said, "Could you provide me health insurance? Or would a doctor accept me to come in for one visit that I don't have to pay for because she has no health insurance?" And then I went farther down the Bitterroot and I met with my next family, and it was actually a family where the mother and dad had cared for a 45-year-old daughter with MS, and their daughter had just passed away. And we had been at St. Pat's having her funeral the week before while she was in a coma, and I had never done something like that. And I said, "What was the challenges for you as a caregiver?" And she said that I didn't get to do it soon enough. My daughter had lived in an abusive relationship, and we weren't allowed to help. But she said we did have 6 months with her, which, you know, was really helpful. She said we got to resolve a lot of family issues. And I said, "What would you have needed more of that we maybe didn't give?" And she said, "I would have liked a family support person like Partners in Home Care provides in Missoula," which I had told them about. She said, "I would have liked that down the Bitterroot, where a pastor or a specialized nurse could have come in and maybe dealt with us a little bit more toward the end." And then I went farther down the Bitterroot, and I met a pair of the grandparents that care for a person that has a head injury. And I asked them, I said, "I'm going to give this talk today, and what would you like me to share with you?" And they said, "We need more help for grandparents." She said, "I think because we're the older generation, they think that we just have all this strength and power," and she said, "We really don't. We need other grandparents to talk to." But she says, "Could we have a list of other grandparents that would be available that we could talk with?" And then I think of a situation that the pastor and I have shared out in another rural area. I remember going to that household, and right away I wanted to pull out my bag of resources. The husband did not need that bag of resources. Finally, his wife, when he went to the bathroom, she put her little finger up and she says, "Just go like this." And so I listened to him and then maybe found out a little bit more of what he needed instead of trying to solve everything right away so quickly. I think of another situation. I really adore caregivers. I just love them. I put on this caregiver conference every year for them that we scrounge up resources for. And I was having trouble with one of the caregivers, and I was thinking, God, I've tried everything to try to relate well and to be there. And finally the caregiver said to me, "You don't think I'm strong when you mention a resource." And I said, "Oh, I just want to mention resources so you can remain strong." And then that was kind of the breaking point where then she could start to trust me. But I thought sometimes I need to be more careful of when I'm suggesting things, that I think it's a help, but they may not take it that way.
Kathy, how do you talk people into taking help?
What I've learned over the years is to just maybe just say, if I could just present one thing instead of our program that I represent, we have 25 to 30 different services that they could choose from, and that's overwhelming. So sometimes I just say, how about if someone just came and made one meal a week? And that seems to be kind of an in, is just one simple thing. I try to invite family members to come to that first meeting, or a neighbor, and then use all of those informal resources, and then sometimes they're sitting at the table and they say, "Sally, maybe you would like that one thing." And so maybe it's someone else in the room kind of helping get the ball rolling instead of the social worker coming into the room.
Great. Other questions for Kathy?
I'd like to just add something to what Kathy was saying. This quote comes to me so strong from Steve Covey: "Seek first to to understand, and then to be understood. And that is exactly what she was saying.
And Brenda, you donated a day at the spa for our caregiver conference in the spring, and it was well appreciated.
Yeah, Kathy's talking primarily about the professional caregivers, which are extremely important, but
We all work together in the process.
Turn over. Pull the covers up, lovey. It's cold tonight. I can't answer all your questions, but I can tell you what I know. The garden is enormous. There are lily of the valley, morning glories, nasturtiums, pansies, lilacs, peonies, and of course, roses. There are blackberry bushes and herbs. The toads hide under the rosemary. Is that so I can have a little of you with me? Oh, Diana Gabaldon has a new book out, the fourth in her series. Check the bookstore soon. And I can't see you, no. But sometimes I can feel what you're feeling if the emotion is strong enough and if it penetrates your subconscious. Try to help your father let go. So much time was spent looking after me. I want him to only be happy now. There's so much. And I want him to experience all of it in the time he has left. Your sister will be fine. And just between you and me, it's a girl. But the thing I really wanted to say to you was love your father and sister. Take care of them. You already do that so well. But don't forget yourself. Take Barney for long walks by the river. Have dinner with your friends. Go dancing every chance you get. And sometimes, put the snack lulls away and eat a real cookie. You've got to take care of yourself. Your soul is a muscle. It gets stronger with use. Your phone is ringing. You don't have to answer it. There won't be anyone on the line. It's just there to wake you up now, so you have a better chance of remembering. I love you, baby. Take care of yourself.
That's a great segue into thinking. We've been talking about the physical, the caregiving, the emotional, but there's a deeper level, that spiritual caregiving. That's what we asked Tom King to come and share with us some sense of some of the deeper aspect of caregiving, if he can try to wrap that together with it.
I'll try.
You'll try.
I started to work as a hospice chaplain about 9 years ago for Partners. And within 3 years, both my parents died. My mother of Alzheimer's and my father a couple of years later of old age. Yeah. They were both on hospice care back in Michigan. And I was one of the siblings in the earlier part of the play that would come home and say, why isn't this being done and why isn't that being done? I also found that all the words that I had said to family members in how to speak with their loved ones as they faced their final days were very hard words for me to speak to my mother and father. Words that I knew needed to be said, but I and I had the words for them, but to get them to get them out and to actually risk saying them, to express my love in the ways that I most wanted to. And typically, it was easier with my mother than with my father. Of course, she had Alzheimer's. It was she was in a very graceful place, as always, even with the Alzheimer's. My father was a little more intimidating for me to be able to speak from my heart to him and risk myself that way. His decline, his physical decline meant for him a spiritual journey where his soul was much more accessible to me and to himself as well. And we got closer in those last couple of years than we ever had been. This was also true with my sister and my father and my brother, who was the primary caregiver back home. It was an amazing journey. My brother carried the weight of all the decision-making, from financial to hiring and firing caregivers, professional caregivers, or sometimes not too professional caregivers. We did have hospice care in there. I was very grateful for that, and thought about my work here, wanting to be with people I was with, as if I was with my mother, my father, and hoping that the people who were caring for them and paid caregivers were with them with that same attitude as family. That's what you hope for and pray for. And you can't always pick up your life and move it somewhere else, but people do, or move their family members closer to them, or move them in with them, and take on all the physical, mental, emotional burden of that. But in the midst of that, as Brenda said, there are these gifts that show up that never would have happened if you hadn't walked with them out of necessity and choice into those areas of vulnerability, both for them and for yourself. So I do think it's a place that we're all headed for, as we all, as this population, this bubble of baby boomers hits the over 65 age. Think about, we're going to have to start learning how to do this, folks, because sure doesn't look like any government agency is going to do it for us. And there is great gift in the midst of the burdens of this work. I also have found, in my experience as a hospice chaplain, the number of elderly folks who once were the center of their faith community, now, because of their disability, not just on the edge, but lost their faith community. They haven't followed them. They haven't stayed with them. And their caregivers begin to get lost too, because, as Nancy said, sometimes church becomes more of a burden. I don't want to have to go there, and I don't want to cry in front of everybody and have them try to take care of me, or I don't want to feel the burden of more caregiving there. Can the faith communities learn the lesson in this change in our society to be more and more out there, not expecting people to come to them, but out there in the homes, as parish nurses do, as sacramental ministers do, as just members of the faith community? can learn to do, to be present, to gather around, to visit. The isolation, the loneliness, the way life just staying with my folks for a week or two and telling the paid caregivers that I can do this and staying with my folks. Life just got very, very small, very slowed down. I felt like I was 80 by the end of the week, and very few people came in unless they were paid to come in or unless I called them. And it's hard for people in those situations to ask for help. The gift of a visitor is so deeply appreciated, and that's the gift of doing this work. I feel like so much of it is just saying to a family, "You're doing it. You're doing it right. You're doing it well." And they're so grateful for that affirmation and the presence of another person. And often the focus of the conversation is not on them, but what's happening. Tell me about your life or the world out there, because my world is so small. How do caregivers care for themselves in the midst of the sometimes it's not being surrounded by others or being in a nurturing, worshiping place, a faith community. Sometimes it's just finding some way to set time aside and begin a practice, some spiritual practice of prayer, of meditation, for quiet, for silence, for listening, and for a nurture that comes beyond any person, but from the Spirit.
It occurred to me also as Tom was talking is that here is a real issue. As families, and particularly the care recipient, gets further and further distance from their church or from their faith community, in our example, Mom has lived in Missoula since 1922. First United Methodist Church is her church. If my mother walked in that church today, very few people would know her because she's homebound. She can't go there. The minister does not know my mother. My mother is interested at some point in talking about her funeral. And who's gonna bury me, Nancy? Mm-hmm. Who's gonna be there? And then Nancy is sitting here thinking, well, who's gonna, I've been to funerals, and I know you've been there, where there is a pastor who gets the obituary from the newspaper and reads it, and that is the sum and substance of that life lived. And so in my journey, that's one of the things that I'm working on with her, is to try to find out who would she want to bury her? They're particular about these things.
I was just going to add to that, and we have talked about this before, but when people are born, my God, there's Lamaze classes and doulas and doctors' visits, and, there's a huge celebration. I would like to create an end-of-life doula, somebody that can be there for the passing and help me. It's almost a celebration, I guess you would say, but it's the same thing with a funeral, like Nancy was saying. It's just, that's a huge part. Mm-hmm. And to ask. Tom said ask for that faith community to come in. I want to take a step further, demand, and accept it. When they do offer, don't go, oh yeah, everything's fine. Bring them in.
Oh, what great bunch of suggestions. Look at this, Kathy. The next door prize is yours. How about that? And that was not planned. It just came out that way. You got another piece? Mm-hmm.
My name is Jesse Robinson, and my grandfather was one of the greatest lovers of life that I've ever known in my entire life, and has been one of the biggest inspirations to me. And I read this at his funeral, and I wish that I would have read it to him before his funeral. But here goes. This is a sonnet by Christina Rossetti. I wish I could remember that first day, first hour, first moment of your meeting me. If bright or dim the season it might be, summer or winter, for aught I can say, so unrecorded did it slip away. So blind was I to see and foresee, so dull to mark the budding of my tree that would not blossom yet for many a May. If I could only remember, if I could recollect such a day of days. I let it come and go as traceless as the thaw of a bygone snow. It seemed to mean so little, meant so much. If only now I could recall that touch, that first touch of hand in hand. Did one but know.
Thank you. A good reminder of life stories, and the significance of stories and relating family experiences. Before we finish needs and challenges, are there any questions in the group? Yes.
But I've heard a couple of you asking about a caregivers network and mentioning the need for one. And there is one now in Missoula. This is its third year. And if there's some room on one of the tables, I'd love to put out some material for after this.
That's great. Well, that's a great segue into the notion of sharing our community resources. What we're going to do is ask representatives from each to briefly identify their organization and bring down your materials here and do that too. And so we're going to go around the table, think about these resources that we have, and then, but in the process, hearing these stories, translate that into what do we have, and then we'll want to go into what do we need, real briefly. So Bernie O'Connor from Aging Services, tell us about what you have to offer.
Sure. I'm the Elder Services Program Manager at Missoula Aging, and I'm going to cut to the quick because there's a lot of minutia to our programs that I won't mention. But we are in the process of attempting to get a family caregiver support program up and running. A lot of what we do is mandated by the Older Americans Act, and at least that's acknowledgement on a national level that this is a huge concern facing everyone. There's quite a few pilot projects going on throughout the United States right now on creating caregiver programs and support and respite programs. What we have designed with the little money that we have received is a family caregiver library, which is full of books and videos. If someone has something that they would like to see as part of our library, we would certainly accommodate them. We also have a computer room that seniors can not only learn, or anyone for that matter, can learn to use a computer, but they can surf the internet for resource information. One little note we have on the wall there that I think is very important is something that states the best gift you can give to someone that you care for is taking care of yourself. One of the biggest problems we've had in working with caregivers is having them identify themselves as caregivers. When I look at the informal caregivers here, you're both professional medical workers. And to have somebody, and this happens around the summertime and Christmas time for us, we get a call. I just flew in from Los Angeles. My mom's house is a mess. Can you send somebody over to clean it up? When we finally get this person into our office to meet about, well, why is your mom's house a mess? You know, and they tell us, well, she used to be such a meticulous cleaner. And then you start seeing other things that are happening in the situation. And then you start identifying resources for this person and what we can do for them. And then we have to say, you know what, you're a caregiver. Long distance as it may be, you are a caregiver. And that changes a lot of dynamics in the family, especially for those who are local, because they become the main caregivers. So a little bit about Missoula Aging. We're the home of the senior nutrition programs. We do provide Meals on Wheels to people over 60 who are homebound and disabled. We are also the home of one of the Medicaid waiver programs. Kathy is involved with one. For people under 60, we're involved with one. over 60, Partners in Home Care is another Medicaid waiver program for people over 60. We have 2 information and assistance specialists that wear very many hats. There are Medicare and Medicaid counselors. There are reverse annuity mortgage counselors through the Montana Board of Housing. There are ombudsmen, which means that they work as advocates for residents of nursing homes and personal care homes. We are also a depository site for Choices Bank. We do all sorts of resource identification for seniors and caregivers. And we're always constantly looking for answers to the lack of resources, which we find many here in town. We're attempting to start a carrier alert program with the United States Postal Service in which carriers will identify elders on their routes or disabled people who, with just the accumulation of mail, is an indicator that something needs to be done. So we would be the social services agency that would respond to that. We're trying to create a neighbor-to-neighbor program in which volunteers will go out as teams and visit seniors in the community. 85 and older is our target audience. And we will be sharing information that we gain from them to emergency responders. For instance, people who live in the urban forest corridor, if they are homebound, what happens if there's a fire up Grant Creek and they live up there? So that this information will be shared with them and will identify them as somebody that the community needs to respond to immediately. So, yes.
Do you have a program maybe where people can call every day and say, how you doing?
We have a care and caller program.
That's more of the minutia. Yes, we do. We have volunteers who call, and they're wonderful. I'd like them to call me once in a while. Talk to me. They're very good people. And we have a home maintenance program. We'll go in and put grab rails on walls and clean out rain gutters and replace washers and faucets. We're not like one of those social service agencies that is very rigid in what we do, and we say no. We're troubleshooters. We're problem solvers. Last week I was in a trailer on the north side putting plastic up on the windows of this 80-year-old woman with a university student who was a volunteer. And I was thinking, gosh, I'm the Elder Services Program Manager, and here I am in a trailer on the north side putting plastic up. I guess that's where the need is, and that's what we do. We identify the need and try to address it immediately.
Yes. Yeah, thanks, Bonnie. The Partners in Home Care is a joint venture between Missoula Community Hospital and St. Patrick Hospital. In 1984, they had a vision that there should be a one-stop shop for home care services. It was always the intention that we would have pooled resources, and we have 5 service lines. They're all on the sign. I'm not going to read them for you. Partners has a central intake system so that when people have inquiries, just basic cold calls, we have nurses who know all of the aspects, including reimbursement issues, whether or not this is a private pay, whether the situation is, who really needs the care. That's all screened and then coordinated through the programs. Physician referral is required for most of our programs, but people can self-refer, and certainly the private duty program, the private services, is one in which families and individuals can pay for their own service and pretty much design the kind of care that they want.
It's very important to have that, even that private pay service. Bonnie's going to tell us about Caring Circles here.
Caring Circles is a program that was started through the LifeSend Institute and is a support system for caregivers. Caring Circles, so much to say. First of all, I guess, I'd like to say that caring circles can do pretty much whatever a caregiver or care receiver would like. There are a couple of things that we don't do. We don't do the medical, and we don't do financial things, but we can refer to resources that might help with those. Many of the needs that were talked about earlier, whether it's respite or taking someone to the doctor, can be handled by caring circles. It's a matter of developing caring circles for an individual. There are several models for caring circles. One model is that you take and find people who will work in certain areas, such as transportation, providing meals, etc., and you find volunteers to do those specific tasks. Another model is to work with an institution such as a nursing home, an assisted living facility, or residential retirement facility such as Missoula Manor. Currently, Caring Circles is trying to develop a core of people who would like to work at Missoula Manor in helping some of the residents there. A third model is to take an individual situation, whether it's Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or a grandparent who's raising grandchildren, and form a circle around them, whether it's all one faith community that helps with that circle, or whether it's developing what we call a naturally occurring circle made up of friends, neighbors, co-workers, family members, and sort of coordinate that. We do have an information meeting coming up about caring circles, and that's going on Monday night. The other thing we're doing is we're making jewelry to sort of support this Caring Circle program and to support a coordinator for that program. If you have questions about, further questions about Caring Circles, we'd be happy to try and answer them.
I'll come over to our little stand here. So hi there. I'm representing Hospice of Missoula here today, and we're a new hospice that's come to town. So we're kind of like the new kids on the block, which is kind of an interesting position to be in. So I just want to say a few words about how we came to come here, and then something about our services, about who we are. Kit Jackson is the director of the hospice, and she's a hospice nurse, and she's the director of Hospice of Utah, and she was invited to come up here and was involved in hospice up here for a while, and then was decided to come back to the community and was invited to come back to the community by some leaders in this field, because they felt it would be good to have a choice in this aspect of care. As with all aspects in this society, choice is a good thing. And so she was invited to come, and she's really keen to do that because her family's here, her daughter's here, and her grandkids are here, and so it made a lot of sense for her to come back to Montana. So we are with a new hospice. So what's different about us? Well, there are many things, of course, that are the same in terms of the services that we provide. So what's different? Well, we're just focused on hospice care. We're not part of a bigger organization. That's just all we do. We do hospice care. And there are many benefits to that. It means we don't have a board that we have to figure things out with. We sit around the office and we kind of decide, oh, we need to do that, and bang, you make a decision, And I bet there's some of you out there who have boards that would very much like to operate like that. It's great just to be able to make decisions on the, just as things come up. We're independent, and we're locally owned, and we're a private concern. And I know that has perhaps caused some consternation with people. Well, how could that be? Shouldn't hospices be non-profit? So I just wanted to directly answer that. As an old socialist, a long-term socialist, I mean, what am I doing working for a private hospice? I don't see anything wrong with that. Actually, it means we can contribute to the tax base, which is much needed in somewhere like Montana. We definitely need that. But just to make it clear that as a private hospice, it doesn't mean that we turn people away from services if they don't have a pay source, if they don't have insurance. We work with Vicky, our social worker, will go out and get those sources of income so that they can be supported. We work with the insurers, underwriters, to make sure that people are covered in that way. So we don't turn people away. We're a small team, small dedicated team, and again, there's a real benefit in that, I think, the way the communication can go. I say we're the new kids on the block, but well, some of the newer kids are quite venerable in terms of this work. They've been doing this work for a long time. And so we have a very experienced staff. And I guess finally, for me, my role as a chaplain with this hospice, I'm really grateful for the kinds of, the attitude of the people that I work with. A lot of the people I work with have a very spiritual dimension on the work that we're doing. They see it as sacred work, and it's incredibly supportive of me with the kind of spiritual care role to have people seeing this work in that kind of way. The hospice nurses have to be very pragmatic people. They have to be very down-to-earth people, but the people that I work with also have a very clear sense of this is spiritual work, so I'm very grateful for that. Thank you.
While Lily comes down to tell us about Choices Bank, I'm going to give away a couple more things. We have some more beautiful bags over here. Kathy, Farrell, and Marcia. How?
Hi, I'm Lily Tucholsky. I'm the acting executive director of the LifeSend Institute Missoula Demonstration Project. And I'm here to tell you about the Choices Bank, which is one of our projects. But before I tell you about Choices Bank, I just want to tell you very briefly about LifeSend Institute. We are a nonprofit that has been working in Missoula since 1996, and our primary mission is to improve the lives of people who are dying and their families. And as I'm sure that you were able to observe through participating this afternoon, the issues that we're addressing are very, very broad and very complicated. They have to do with economics, spirituality, psychosocial issues, just the whole gamut. And the primary tenet under which we operate is that these issues are community issues. They belong to all of us. And so what we've done is conducted a great deal of research to take a picture of what the end of life is really like in this community. And then we use the information from our research to involve people in a variety of different projects and interventions. And we do that through task forces. We've had lots and lots of different task forces. We had an arts task force, life stories task force, a faith community task force, and we've also had an advanced care planning task force. And advanced care planning, very briefly, is the process under which we identify what we would want in the way of care and surroundings should we ever come to a situation where we can't speak for ourselves. And we do that through filling out living wills, which I'm sure you've all heard of, and also designating a representative, a healthcare representative, to speak for us should we ever become unable to speak and make choices verbally for ourselves. And the formal way of doing advanced care planning is to fill out an advance directive. And one of the things our advanced care planning task force did was make a standard advance directive form called the My Choices form, which is available now community-wide. And the most important thing to know about your advance directives is this. If you ever cannot speak for yourself and make healthcare decisions, it is extraordinarily stressful for your loved ones. And if you have taken the time to write down and really think about these things and decide what you may want and choose someone who's close to you to make decisions for you, you can minimize the stress that your family would undergo should you not be able to speak for yourself. And also, filling out an advance directive allows you to exercise a unique American right, and that is to accept or reject any health care, no matter if you can speak or not. And so, why Choices Bank? Well, one of the things we found through our research is that advance directives are often very, very difficult to find when they're needed most. And we know that in 80% of the cases when advance directives are needed, we have difficulty finding them in our community, in our healthcare institutions, in our parents' drawers, in their safe deposit boxes, which are locked. And so the Choices Bank then is an electronic repository for healthcare directives, for advance directives. It uses a very simple technology called the internet. And if you complete an advance directive, you can deposit it or turn it in at any one of 9 different locations in Missoula. We have been developed with lots and lots of help. LifeSend Institute has worked very closely with St. Patrick Hospital and Health Sciences Center, Community Medical Center, Western Montana Clinic, Partners in Home Care, Christ the King Parish Nurse Program, the home health agencies have all contributed to this project and all have ways that you can deposit your advance directive either through these organizations or at these organizations. And of course you can do that at LifeSend Institute as well, which is in the little yellow house right across the street from the library on Main Street in Missoula. And so I'll close with that. If you have any questions, there are several of us here from LifeSend Institute who would be more than happy to answer your questions afterwards or right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Susie's going to come and tell us a little bit about story keepers, and the significance of story keepers is that for us, I find as a family caregiver and cherished today is, but when you look at that full story of the person that you're caring for, it really makes a difference, right, Susie?
So we developed out from, it was Missoula Demonstration Project and the Continuing Life Stories. So we became our own nonprofit several years ago. We host a couple of workshops a year. And more importantly, we go out as needed or as wanted and refer from hospice people, whatever, finding people who have a story and try to gather that story. So we'll do one-on-one stories that might take 2 to 10 to 20 pages, usually 6 or 8. And that's working with a person through several different times. Or we'll do story circles, which are like reminiscent stories, and I'll go into nursing homes or assisted living homes, and sometimes I'll be asked to do those. Those are usually totally oral. Sometimes I've written them out. So we use tape recorders, and there are lots of different ideas on how to gather people's stories, so we've been doing that for a while. And through Story Keepers, we've done other things like the Stones and the Stories, Telebration, which is an international experience, the first Saturday before Thanksgiving, all across the nation and around the world, where people tell stories. Now, these stories may not be true life stories, so we have 2 kind of directions where we go. Stories that are just wonderful and real life stories. So anyway, there's a few brochures here, a little article here on Telebration coming up, and there's an Association of National Personal Historians, which we are linked in with too. So there's an awful lot going on. It's huge in this country right now, finding each other's stories.
We should say the time and place for Telebrations is next Saturday night, the 23rd, at the Wild Ground, that 702 Brooks, and at 7 o'clock, so hopefully you can enjoy that. Maggie, how about a door prize from Partners? This is for Maggie. I drew your name out of the bag. So congratulations. Does anybody speak Spanish? They sent us a Spanish book. Do you? You've got a book, a Spanish book on caregiving, because there aren't very many takers. Okay, briefly now, what are our gaps of service in Missoula? How do we, what things do we want to keep focused on? We want to keep nurturing the things we have, but what is missing? I've got an idea. It's adult daycare. Who's going to do adult daycare for us? Where are we going to get it? We need it really, really bad. So inspire somebody to do adult daycare for us, okay? What are your ideas? You guys got some ideas? Oh, here we go.
Well, I don't know if it's an idea or if it's already a need. A lot of the people that I see have kids living out of town and nobody nearby. And I know you've talked about this in the past, but we really need to hire a kid service. There needs to be somebody that they can call up and say, I want you to be my eyes and ears and check up on my parents and connect them to where they need to be and make sure that the social workers are there and the nurses are there and so on. I mean, I think there's a spot for that, at least I see it fairly frequently.
Right.
And I think privately you can hire social workers or case managers to do some of that monitoring and to set up services. And I think something to consider is social workers at hospitals and social workers at home health agencies have a resource beyond resources that to tap into. Even if you have a quick question, to just call. I ran into a lady in a grocery store the other day that was 85, and we started talking about things, and she needed some resources. I ended up with a volunteer out of that hour dialogue, but calling social workers at different, even nursing home social workers have a wealth of resources available.
Maybe we need to get a list of their phone numbers, huh?
I was going to say, and this is from a caregiver standpoint, obviously, and not a nurse, sometimes we don't know what to ask. It's like, oh my God, I'm stressed, and so it's almost like I, explain the situation maybe, and then, a person like yourself could help match that need. The other thing I want to honor is the storytelling, because for whatever reason, Mom doesn't feel like she could tell all the wild stories. And so she'll tell them to the caregiver, who tells them to me. But having that third person is wonderful, because she has all these scrapbooks and stories.
Yeah.
I would also think that there's a tremendous need for education of our business community and employers. As a healthcare employer, we hire caregivers who are also caregivers, and we try as best we can to try to give time off for elder care and not just child care. And I think that that is not true for the retail industry and for some of the other industries. People are definitely punished for being late for a reason, or there's an inflexibility that they can't accommodate, the employer cannot or will not accommodate certain hours during the dinner hour or whatever. And I think that's something everyone should be doing.
Do you want to say something about that?
I'll just complete that. If we could do a profile of one of the agencies like Partners that does a good job of that and put it in the Missoulian, and then maybe just kind of keep it going from there.
I'd like to hear from parish nurses, because this is a great program and you've done a great job, Joan. Can you say something about that to everyone here? I mean, we've referred to it a number of times, but
Thank you.
promise to be brief. I know Barbara's got us on her stopwatch. What I'm hearing is stories of relationship, stories of healing. We're here together, not as individuals, but as a community. And it's in relationship that healing happens. You can have medicines, you can have treatments, you can have all of the stuff that the medical world offers, but without the human face looking into your eyes and somebody there to take your hand and remind you that you matter, then healing can't happen. And basically, parish nursing is about the relationships. We happen to gather in faith communities, those of us who are parish nurses, because we also share a deep faith belief. And parish nursing is relationship building by professional nurses within faith communities. It's only one avenue that healing can happen. Health ministry happens whether you're a registered nurse or not. What I'm hearing over and over is that there is a real need for our churches to reconnect with people who can no longer be there. And you don't have to be a nurse to do that. You have to be a person of compassion, willing to give some time to stretch yourself and to help build bridges between one place and the other. And my dream is that nurses will perhaps lead the way. We have some outstanding parish nurse programs. Christ the King is a model parish nurse program, and they are reaching people's hearts, and they are making a difference. And I would encourage you to talk, if you are a faith member, talk to your clergy, talk to whoever your leader is, say, hey, we need some health ministry here. Call the hospital. Let's see if we can't keep this going, because it's just one of many ways that we remind one another what we're about and that we can't do this alone, nor were we ever called to do this alone. Mm-hmm. So that's what parish nursing is about. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like that reminder that we don't have to do this alone. We're not called to do this. It's not our responsibility to do it alone. We can just be major players in our Caring Circles also comes out of faith communities in a primary way also. So the parish nurses and Caring Circles make a great duo there. Mm-hmm.
A couple of things that I've heard about recently. One is that a caregiver said, gee, it would really just be nice if I could spend some time at home alone. Maybe it would be nice if we had volunteers or someone who could take the person who is ill or sick out for a ride and give the caregiver some time to just sort of reflect on their own house or read or whatever. The second thing, let me see. I'll think about it. Anybody else? I'd like to encourage the audience to participate too. Anything else that is missing?
Is hospice coverage for Medicaid? Oh, gosh. Will that ever be?
That particular medical insurance serves the poorest of the poor. That is going away. That is in the paper today. It did not survive the cuts. And also something that struck me for many years doing hospice social work is that if you become terminally ill before you are 65 and you don't qualify for Medicaid because you do have some resources, you do have some things, you've been working hard, you're 55 years old, you can't get Medicare for 2 years after the point you are determined disabled, and in many cases that means that you're terminally disabled. Many people don't live that long, and I really encourage, and it's always been one of my letter writing telephone campaigns, is that Medicare needs to look at all people and all their states of disability and not limit things and not prevent people from getting good quality end-of-life care.
Something else I was going to mention that I thought of finally. Many people have special things. Maybe they have a silver tea set, or maybe they have some copper candelabra or candlesticks. And maybe they haven't been polished in a long time. Maybe it would just be nice. It doesn't have to be something big and expensive. It can be something small but would brighten your day. Anyone else up here? I think I want to give an opportunity to talk about the support group here for just a second.
My name is Diana Mitchell, and our caregiver support group meets the third Wednesday of every month at Missoula Aging Services from 7 to 8:30 in the evening. For those who need in-service credits, you get an hour and a half of in-service credit for being there. We have free childcare in-house, and it has to be caregiver-driven. This was started because caregivers wanted a place to come and vent and meet other caregivers and say, oh, gosh, you're in the same boat, and have that recognition that you're not out there alone. And so we're just getting up and running. We're trying to get a website going. I'll have some literature down there in a little while that'll have contact names and numbers. There's some copies of the newsletter we put out the 1st of November, along with an agenda for Wednesday night's meeting. So this Wednesday is the next meeting, and it's at Missoula Aging Services, 7 to 8:30.
Is this, excuse me, is this for professional caregivers?
It is for all caregivers,
Okay.
professional as well as private caregivers. Right now, I don't think there's a need to separate that out. We need to get them all together to find out who they are first before you can, address different issues.
Thank you.
Do you put it in the paper?
But, yeah.
I would like to get it in the newspaper along with PSAs, public service announcements on PBS and the like. So if anybody comes Wednesday night and has those skills and the time, I'd love to help also.
Great. Well, we hit our magic hour where I was really hoping you could spend the last 10 minutes looking at materials that have been brought. Yeah. And Brenda has a very important piece there too. So give this one.
I'm hearing a lot about parish nursing, and how about combining social work with parish nursing together? Is there such a thing? Where?
I also wanted to say with the Adventist Church, they have been wonderful, like a new pastor, to come out and meet Mom, and the people that come to visit, and the piano's right next to her. And one night they brought over just a small cooked dish, and I was like eternally grateful. I couldn't remember the last time somebody cooked, for me, not just for Mom, but it was nice. So with that, can I announce who this is? Sitting right next to me is Kathy Flynn, and the caregiver that's going to receive it is Linda Macy. So,
She's from Stevensville.
yeah.
One of the ones I was talking about.
Yeah, so she'll receive that. It will be a full day at the spa. She will get a half-hour vitamin C soak in our jacuzzi tub, a 1-hour massage, a manicure, pedicure, and a haircut and style.
Wow.
Thank you very much, Brenda.
Well, thank you all for coming. Come on down here and look over this stuff. Buy some jewelry from wearing Caring Jewelry. And thank you.